everybody. It's Allie, and welcome to our Y&R Chat for Sunday, May 10th, 2020. It was Nikki and Victor, a lifetime of love theme week. After all of these years, do you still love Nikki and Victor? Do you still feel the magic between Nikki and Victor? Or are you just over it? Has it been overplayed and you were just waiting patiently for the week to be over? That's our poll question for this week at yrchat.com. Do you still love Nikki and Victor after all this time? Or maybe you never loved them at all. Is that possible? Is that even possible? I'm sure you're going to tell me. You know, I love them. I'm a sucker for Nikki and Victor. It doesn't matter how much these two have been through together. I'm always willing to get back on board with them. And I'll tell you, last week I said that I was really anxious about this theme week. I was wanting Y&R to give me some deep dive episodes. Like, I wanted some obscure stuff for the diehard fans like me and you. I don't want to just see the classics. And I really think this week they delivered. I was nervous that I was just going to be sitting through some more boring wedding episodes, but I tell ya, Y&R this week did such a deep dive into Nikki and Victor's history that 2 of the 5 episodes weren't even about Nikki and Victor's epic love. 2 out of the 5 episodes were more about Nikki and Victor kind of love-hating each other, which is probably more true to their story anyway. There was so much classic content this week, especially in that final wedding episode that we saw on Friday. That was the wedding I really needed and wanted to see from 2002. That has to have been one of the last sort of big weddings that Y&R has even thrown. And it was good. It had everything. Romance, rose petals. It had a shot of Victor combing his mustache right before the wedding. What more could you ask for? We also had the drama of Ashley revealing Abby's paternity secret, and all of that juicy drama was playing out against the romance of the day. Fun! One little juicy detail, one little dirty juicy detail that Ashley failed to leave out of that camcorder confession was the fact that she stole Victor's sperm and had herself inseminated with it, and then let my man Brad believe that he was Abby's father. Now, not to beat a dead Brad here, but come on, one by one, every single thing that man had got slowly taken away from him. His daughter, his wife, and eventually his life. And I can't help but want to comfort him. It's just in my blood. Brad's my man. He's my all-time man. And Ashley dogged him. I mean, she wanted to be with Victor, obviously, not Brad. I mean, that high exposure fantasy that Ashley was having of raising Abby with Victor, well, that was a highlight. We also even had this beautiful photo slideshow, which I also thought was a real highlight of that episode. It was giving us a lot more good and bad times for Nikki and Victor, and it was a really good way to top off the week. I was in tears. I watched it twice, and I was in tears twice. Oh. But of course, the best part of the entire 2002 wedding episode was the fact that it really honestly wouldn't even be a proper Genoa City wedding without Sharon standing there in her bridesmaid's dress after just being found out that she had slept around. Oh, Sharon. Did you see the look that Doris gave to Sharon as Sharon was walking down the aisle? Like, we don't even need to get into all of the details of how Sharon slept with Diego while she was still married to Nick. We don't even need to get into the drama because the look on Doris's face said it all. The look on Doris's face was, that girl ain't right. Our Nicky and Victor Lifetime of Love theme week started out in 1981 as Douglas strolled through the ranch front door with Nicky on his arm and a fur coat draped around his shoulders. And then he proceeded to call Victor my manservant. That is all. I'm done. What more could I possibly even have asked for? On Monday, I was done. I can't even. That's all. That's all. That's all for this week's Y&R Chat. See you later. Bye. It's all I could handle just to get through the front door. 1981. I love that Y&R took us all the way back to 1981, but it wasn't to the bayou. You know, they took us a little past, just a little, they didn't show us the bayou scenes again. They took us on the tail of how Victor was trying to woo Nicky. I mean, that's really where he saw her at the bayou. He was interested in her at the Bayou Dance Club, but he had to start his process of pursuing her. He was enthralled with Nicky. She was this exotic dancer, probably very different from a lot of the women that he had known. And so he felt the need to play this little cat and mouse game with her, to test her, to see if she was really, if she would really be interested in him as a person and not just as this incredibly wealthy man. I remember reading in my Y&R book a long time ago. I mean, maybe being like 16 years old and reading my Y&R book. And it said that, you know, this was part of Victor's strategy to determine if Nicky was true. It was honestly probably the first time that Victor was testing Nicky. But it would certainly not be the last time that Victor will be testing Nicky. Sometimes I think that Victor is testing Nicky on a daily basis. Oh, I really think this week's poll comments will be very interesting. I want to hear some people telling me some reasons, maybe why Victor and Nicky aren't the epic couple that everyone remembers them as and maybe wants to believe them as. But I was swept up in the romance. I can't help myself. I loved the gentle yet ruggedly handsome look on Victor's face when he took Nicky down to the stables and he was pretending that all of the horses and all of the riding trophies, that they didn't even belong to him. And there was this very wide-eyed yet wise look on Nicky's face the entire time as she let him play his little game. Now, did she know what he was up to that entire time? It was Douglas who speculated after they left and went down to the stables that Nicky knew what Victor was up to and that indeed she was setting the trap for him. I loved Douglas's little petite four, is that how you say it? Petit four? His monologue, and then he took a little tiny bite off of his petit four. Colonel Douglas Austin. Colonel Douglas Austin. Was he a real colonel? Can anybody tell me, was Nicky hip to the fact that Victor owned the place and that he was playing this little game with her? And was Colonel Douglas Austin an actual colonel, or was he just a colonel in the same way that Catherine was a duchess? As in, not at all. Second only to Nicky and Victor, and in some ways possibly more intriguing for me, was Vanessa Prentiss in 1981. This story had me enthralled. From the moment that the camera panned up from her prescription bottle and her jeweled hand onto her face and pulling away up to her whole, reveal her whole body lying on the floor, oh my gosh, I was in. Katie Stevens was the actress's name, and she was compelling as all get out. If this were a brand new episode of Y&R airing, and I'm sitting there watching my TV in 1981, flipping on to this episode, oh, she would have made me come back to watch tomorrow. Ugh. Wow. What a dark character. And the show overall was so dark. There have been many points in modern Y&R history and in Y&R Chat history where I've complained that a story was too dark for daytime. I've said that phrase a million times. This is too dark for daytime, but daytime at this time in 1981 was dark. In the beginning it was dark. And it was shadowy, and it was intense, and everything seemed to move slower and with more intention. Like each and every word that was said, each motion was carefully staged, carefully planned, and it was absolutely gripping. That was so good, Vanessa Prentiss. And also, oh my goodness, I love a good bandaged face reveal. How about that? Barbara. She made me instantly want to start digging into my scarf collection. And really start to rock the headscarf look, because I have a ton of little headscarves just like the one she was wearing, and I've just never been bold enough to wear them, and now I'm starting to think maybe now is the time, although I think probably the headscarf and face mask probably don't go very well together, or do they? Or do they? Headscarf and face mask? Could be the new trend for 2020 coming out of all of this. That was so intriguing to me. It's just like, what is going on here? Barbara was apparently the twin sister of April Stevens, and they at least went to the trouble of saying, oh, okay, well, there was this plastic surgery, and that's why they don't look alike. I can't help but feel that Y&R wouldn't even bother today. There'd just be something, they would mention it briefly, one line to explain why they don't look like twins, or I don't know. Whatever, just go with it. But yeah, they took the time to show her in these bandages and to do this reveal. That was fantastic. April Stevens was also really compelling to me. I did not watch at the time of the 1981 episode. I was one. But I do remember April Stevens from 93, the year that I did start watching, and she was returning to Genoa City, I think for the first time in a decade. She was escaping from an abusive husband, and she was coming to Genoa City and was getting Paul's help. At that time, I didn't know enough about the character to really connect in with her, but now here we are, getting a chance to watch this classic episode, and now I'm finally understanding April's backstory. We had Dorothy and Wayne, who I also thought there was like this slow spookiness in their conversation, and it was just so intriguing. Like, it just made me want to peel apart the layers of this family. I mean, they were talking about and acknowledging the fact that they had had twins, and they had to make this very difficult decision to give one away at birth. And even though it's such a trope at this point in soap operas, I guess it was just the delivery and the way everything was filmed so mysteriously that I was so curious to understand why and how, and I loved those scenes so much. Actually, April was married to Paul in 1981, and even though we didn't see them, I believe they had a baby together who we also saw aged into adulthood. It was Heather Stevens, the daughter of Paul and April, and she was a lawyer, I believe. I want to say she was a prosecuting attorney on the show, probably in the 2000s, mid to late 2000s. Oh, well. Paul's marriage to April did not work out, but Paul's detective business did. And that was the detective business he was starting at that time in 1981. In fact, his first case was tracking down April's long-lost twin sister and then having an affair with her. It is so surprising to me that in a week themed Nicky and Victor, A Lifetime of Love, that Y&R would choose to include 1987, Nicky faking a deathly illness to try to get Victor to stay with her, and dreaming of her own funeral. What a real fairy tale we have here. Victor, I'm alive. Now make love to me inside of this casket. Don't get me wrong. It was an awesome curveball. I would never have expected in a million years to have seen that episode. But I loved every minute of it. It was just such an obscure choice, and it was kind of confusing too, because that episode opened with Victor telling his brother Matt that Nicky had done something so cruel, but he was not telling the audience what it was that Nicky had done. Typical Victor. Telling someone else and not us. Where have we seen that recently? But I spent the entire episode trying to figure out what the heck was going on. I figured it out in the end, and then I was able to confirm it online, but this had to have been very puzzling for viewers who were not watching in 1987. When the ranch walls were green, or gray, or greenish gray. My entire Y&R ranch identity is built upon those pink walls. And then here we are in 1987, well before I was watching the show, and those walls were greenish gray. Well, I guess if you take the funeral out of it, Nicky and Victor's dream reunion was romantic. I guess. A funeral reunion. Okay, I guess. I mean, he was so happy to see her alive in her dream. Oh, and, just, he was so very wide-eyed, and she was happy to be there, and they were just so happy to be reunited. It's interesting to have seen Nicky go from the Monday episode where she was new to all of this, and there was almost a little bit of an innocence about her, or at least a freshness about her. And then we pop into 1987, 6 years later, and Nikki was being manipulative here. Pretty darn manipulative. I guess if you're lucky enough to stick around long enough on a soap, you're gonna get manipulative. I think you either start out bad and go good, or you start out bad and you get redeemed and you become good, and then it cycles back around. I think most soap characters have both bad and good deeds under their belt if they've been around long enough. But speaking of bad and good, Ashley had some pretty good bad hair in that 1987 episode. And did you see her skinny little waist? Ooh, she was teased and hairsprayed, and she was wearing a little crop top, and her waist just, it was so tiny. I think Eileen Davidson is one of those people who actually looks better today, though, and not just because of the 80s hair. Like, in general, I feel like Eileen Davidson is just, she's like a flower that's just bloomed and become more beautiful over time. 33 years. How many people can say, I look better now than I looked 33 years ago? And for the time, 33 years ago, she still looked good. It's just, I don't know, some of these people, the phenomenon, it's crazy. They just they must have like the right genes for being televised. Oh, but Eileen Davidson's acting was really pretty good here too. She was given a lot of faces and a lot of emotions in that dream sequence of Nikki's. I just can't get over it, you guys. It is such a weird episode to pick. Like, for a Nikki and Victor romance theme week, Victor wanted to be with Ashley in 1987, and Nikki was faking a deathly illness in order to keep Victor away from Ashley. And even though the dream sequence was very, very beautiful, I mean, we had the candles and Nikki all in white, looking like a beautiful dead princess. I mean, by the end of that episode, when she woke up from her dream, Victor had come into the ranch in reality, and he was looking at her with such disdain for lying to him. How romantic. Guys, I think that I'm in love with Danny Romalotti from 1987. The scene where he was talking to Phillip about his relationship status with Cricket. Oh my gosh. Danny had all of that mullet hair pulled back into a very loose ponytail, and he had on this teal bowling jacket with a matching teal button-up shirt underneath, and this bright neon jukebox in the background of his apartment. What a rock star. Danny! I just want to go away on tour with him forever. I want to slip him some drugs, make love to him, get pregnant, and then make him think that the baby is his. But only if I can't get him to love me. If he falls in love with me naturally, we're good. But if he throws up any kind of resistance to our relationship, boom, I'm slipping something in his drink and let the games begin. That is the soap opera way. Oh. I cannot say that I was this crazy over Phillip. Phillip Chetzler III, although I know there are so many of you who love him. But after I started watching the show in 93, the only time he'd already died. And so the only time he had ever come back onto the scene was in a dream or to reveal that he faked his own death. And this is another thing I have to ask. I've always had trouble understanding the actor. Like I have a hard time understanding his speaking voice a little bit, and I thought maybe he had a speech impediment or something. But then here he is in this 1987 episode, and I could hear him perfectly clear. So I'm not sure if that was something that developed over time. Did anybody else have that problem? It was just like one of those things where every time I saw him coming back onto the screen, I really had to struggle to understand him. And it's probably just like how some of you guys had trouble understanding Kane's speech. I've had so many people say they feel he mumbles and doesn't articulate his words. And so I kind of wonder if anybody else noticed that about Phillip III. Maybe it's just me? But I was able to connect with him so much more in the 1987 episode, and I think I did get a better sense of what viewers have seen in him. I think that there was something very compelling and tragic about Phillip's entire life, really. I mean, I think that path was set before he died, well before he died, when he was born. I mean, his father was killed before he was born, or at least when he was very, very young. And Phillip III was just thrust into this whole world of drama between his mother Jill and Catherine Chancellor, his father's ex-wife. And there was a lot of battling over and around Phillip and even his name, even right down to him being able to use the Chancellor name. I just could totally see him when I'm looking in his eyes in 1987. I could see him having been like a troubled teen that carried through into adulthood, and to my understanding, Phillip struggled with drinking pretty much the entire time that he was on the show. Like when he was back from boarding school, that is. That it was always kind of this running theme, his sobriety and trying to keep it. But just prior to the 1987 episode that we saw, Phillip had gotten drunk, crashed his car, and in order to protect him, Cricket switched seats in the car with him and said that she was the driver. And Cricket almost lost her modeling career over this. So obviously she really cared about Phillip, or she wouldn't have done such a thing. I think Cricket was very protective of him, and she wanted to help him have a better life. And that's why she was living at the Chancellor Mansion with Catherine. She was just trying to keep Phillip on track. And in the meantime, she was growing to love him. She did, in fact, accept his marriage proposal after we saw him picking out the gaudy 1987 engagement rings at the ring store at the end of that episode. I had to screenshot the ring. Oh, you want an engagement ring? Here, we have 12 for you to choose from. They're all so different and so big and look like costume jewelry. They look nothing like engagement rings today, so I had to screen cap that if you want to go back and look at it. It was just so 80s, that little box of the 12 rings that they had. I mean, today too, a jeweler is going to have cases and cases of engagement rings, right? It's probably the most popular ring that gets bought. But here's your 12. Oh, so many choices. But he picked one out, he proposed to Cricket, she accepted, and before they could actually get married, Nina seduced Phillip, got pregnant with Phillip Chancellor IV, known as Chance, and their whole lives blew up. It was a whole thing. Phillip was, I think, miserable, right? Because he really wanted to be with Christine. He wasn't in love with Nina. It was a one-night stand that resulted in a child, as we've seen many times before. But I think his misery, it's clear that he was troubled and miserable, and he was struggling with alcoholism. So he drove drunk one night. He smashed his sports car, which I believe was a gift from Catherine, and he died. Or, well, actually, that's, what we thought for the next 20 years. Terry Lester as Jack Abbott. It's almost too much for me to handle. can't. I can't possibly wrap my head around this. I cannot possibly accept anyone other than Peter Bergman playing that role because I started watching in '93, and I know that so many of you feel the opposite. It's just that every time John was calling him Jack, it felt like a dagger through my heart. I was like, John, how could you be calling this imposter your son? Okay, I know. This is just a generational thing. It's just you were either watching pre-Peter Bergman or post-Peter Bergman. And I know many of you are thinking to me, Allie, no, Peter Bergman is the imposter. But I'm not ready to admit that. I can only give you my Y&R perspective. I can't be someone who started watching prior to '93 because it just wasn't. But I did notice that John was looking at Terry Lester's Jack in the exact same way that he looked at Peter Bergman's Jack. There was just, he loved him, but he was mildly annoyed with him all the time. John's kind of mildly annoyed a lot of the time. But I did notice that Jerry Douglas's performance it was exactly the same. It could have been Peter Bergman standing right there. It was exactly the same. Love but mild annoyance. That could be the title of their relationship. I find it odd that Jack was encouraging John to marry a woman whom he had dated, Ellen Winters. I don't know a thing about her, except that she was gorgeous. I loved her face. I loved her little sensible sweater and skirt combo. That was very real. That was very working gal real for the time. I guess that would have been the '87 episode. Yeah, I liked her a lot. She was working at a homeless shelter apparently, and Jack was sentenced to do some community service. So he that's where he met her, was in this homeless shelter. I guess he fell in love with her. He dated her briefly, and then she dated John. But I'm assuming that Ellen took that job in Washington that they were talking about at the time, because her character left town that same year. So she must have been short-lived and just about to leave town. Did not end up having that relationship with John. The bigger story for me from that little set of scenes was seeing Dennis Haysbert. Dennis Haysbert. He was at the homeless shelter. And the entire episode, I was trying to figure out who the heck he was. The character's name was Ron, and I kept staring at him going, he just looks so familiar. And then it dawned on me, whoa, wait a minute. It's the Allstate Man. Dennis Haysbert. He's the main pitch man for Allstate Insurance. He must have had a brief stint on Y&R before he went on to his real claim to fame, selling me reasonably priced home and auto insurance. Also under the heading of Nicky and Victor's Lifetime of Love, was the time that Nikki got drunk, dropped her dress, and did a striptease for her ex-husband Victor right in front of her current husband Jack. Wow. I think outside of probably the first 1981 episode, this was my favorite moment of the week. Nikki's impromptu public striptease was my second favorite. I mean, the whole episode of 1981 was so amazing and so intriguing to me, but as far as moments go, Nikki's exotic dance. It made me fall in love with Melody Thomas Scott all over again. I mean, thank goodness she happened to have that amazing white lingerie on underneath that amazing blue and red lined dress. She looked incredible. I screen capped so many screen caps of that my screen caps almost broke. It was so memorable. She had all the right attitude. She was fierce. Her body was gorgeous. Her face was gorgeous. She was giving Victor all of the same reasons that he was so enthralled with her in the first place, only better. Like, she was stepping up her game. Oh. And poor Jack, the whole time, literally, the whole time Nikki's doing her exotic dance, Jack is standing there holding her purse. I'd say that says a whole lot about the relationship right there. He was holding her purse the entire time until he finally walked up to her and covered her with his jacket after it looked like it was about ready to get a little too carried away. It looked like she was about to go down a layer. And he put the jacket over her. I mean, who wouldn't be happy with just Jack? Did you see the purple Paisley silk robe that Jack wears to bed? Who wouldn't want that? Who would want Victor and not purple Paisley silk robe, man? I died when Victor came out to the ranch later that night to see why Nikki was behaving this way, why she might possibly be so unhappy. And then Jack comes down the stairs in his purple Paisley silk robe. This guy, I just think I forgot what Jack used to be like. I forgot that he was this. He's just matured so much, and he's just a staple at this point. He's just so stable at this point. And I forgot that he used to be such a twerp. Silk robes and scarves. I mean, that could be the title of the Jack Abbott story. He had, you guys, 2 more scarves around his neck in that episode. There was a total of 3 scarves around Jack's neck in that episode. There was the white scarf that was draped over the black tuxedo in the opening credits. And then at the very beginning of that episode, as it opened up, he had a pink women's scarf draped around his tux, like around his neck and over his tux. For what reason, I don't know, but you know you saw it. He was just covered in a pink scarf. And then later, Nikki draped her blue and red wrap scarf around his neck and was playing with him playfully. Like, I don't get it. What is it with young Jack and all of these scarves? Well, when Nikki got back to the ranch that night, later after the exotic dance, guess what? The ranch walls were pink. Pink, pink, pink. 1990 was that episode, and there were pink, pink, pink walls. All of a sudden, I felt a whole lot more secure in the world. Those pink ranch walls are like my security blanket. I can wrap myself up in it like a scarf. Oh, I'm wondering now if it's possible that Nikki painted the ranch walls pink after she and Victor divorced. Because come to think of it, yeah, Victor wouldn't have painted his walls pink, but Nikki woulda after they divorced and she got the house, right? That makes perfect sense. So this is just giving me all new context to the things that I love and that are fundamental to me about when I started watching Y&R. So can anybody confirm that for me? Like, was there a moment where Nikki did a ranch makeover after the divorce? This is of the utmost importance to me. Please, I need to know. Oh, there's so much uncertainty in the world right now, and those pink ranch walls give me comfort. Oh, let's see. Victor and Nikki were divorced, and Nikki was married to Jack, and she was living with Jack at the Pink Ranch. at the time. That was 1990. It's worth noting too, I believe, that Victor was only seducing Cassandra Rollins in that episode, that 1990 episode. I think he was trying to get her to open up about the murder of her husband, maybe it's Rawlings. I think I said that wrong last week. Isn't it Rawlings? Rollins? I think it's Rawlings. But I think that, Victor's sitting there at the table with Cassandra, obviously canoodling with her. I think that was all part of Victor's plan in 1990 to get her to open up about the murder of her husband. And it was that following year, 1991, where we saw an episode last week or 2 weeks ago where Paul and Victor and Nathan were, conspiring together to try to save her from Adrian, who ended up being the real person who murdered her husband. So I thought that was an interesting follow-up to that little scene that we saw. There's so many points in watching these episodes where I keep thinking to myself, wow, that really worked out. Like we're bouncing around, and I'm starting to see how all of these stories are connecting together, and Y&R's done a good job of connecting the episodes. So it was interesting to see a little bit of follow-up on that, on Cassandra Rawlings. I'm never going to say that right. Yeah. So, even though it looked like Victor was with another woman, maybe trying to seduce her, I don't think that's what was going on. Cassandra Rawlings, though, she was beautiful and she was intriguing, but boy, she was no match for Nikki Newman Abbott and her exotic dancing skills. Oh my gosh, when Nikki pranced up to Victor and Cassandra's table and she dropped her earrings right down into Cassandra's champagne glass, I shouted at my screen, "Go Diva!" Just as we talked about last week, Mamie actually got some story in the 1990 episode that we saw. And it was a really good point that was made last week, that even though, like, for instance, Miguel was there a lot and he got some crumbs of story, Mamie actually did get some storyline. And here's an example of it. John was trying to hide from Mamie the fact that her niece, Drusilla, had been arrested for petty theft. And when John finally told Mamie what was going on, the look on Mamie's face, she was pissed. Like, did you see it? Did you see it come up over her face? Like, first she was shocked, but then she was pissed. I have seen that face on my mom. Maybe you've seen it on your mom or your grandmom, or it's like the face that you see in the moment where you realize that you just messed up. It's the disciplinarian face. Like, you crossed the line, girl. Oh, that is the face that makes sure that you only do whatever you just did once. That was great. That actress was really great to give me that moment of realism. I tell you, I would not have wanted to be on the receiving end of that face that Mamie was given. And she let Drew sit in jail, too. I'm glad. I'm really glad. I think most parents might not do that today, or most parental figures. Yeah, I don't think that would have happened today. Kids get bailed out, and I think maybe I'd probably bail my kid out the first time, but this was obviously not Drew's first time. If I found out that my kid or my niece or whoever had done this multiple times, you better believe I would let her sit in jail, and I would let her go to court, and I would let her pay the fines. Consequences. Tough love. See, that's what makes me appreciate that scene that we saw, I think 2 weeks ago, where Drew was lecturing Devon at the rec center over some money that was taken. I didn't even realize how much that story was coming full circle until I saw this 1990 scene. I don't think I've ever seen that before. I don't think I've seen the young scrapper Drusilla live and in person before. And I just feel like I get it now so much more, how much more she had to work to pull herself up from, from a destructive place. Ugh. Young Drew had so much attitude and so much face, and she was just great. I mean, young Drew was great. I can see why she became such a huge star of the show. She was pleading her case to Mamie, and she was being real rough and defensive, but then you could see her temperament turn into this sweetness when she was trying to convince Mamie to get her out of this jam, and then she was turning real angry when she realized that her manipulation was not going to work. That is so real. The bad seed relative, that is real. Oh man, young Drew was great. Midlife Drew was great, and I even think older dreadlock Drew that we got last year was great. Seeing all of these classic episodes make me realize how much I miss Drew. I think I miss her more than I did when she first left the show. Young Sheila Carter was so soft and so beautiful looking, and I don't think I ever have stopped before to notice how attractive she was. I just think I only ever knew of her over-the-top villainy, and that was so all-encompassing that I never really stopped to look at her and think about what a beauty she really was. And so interesting. When Scott left her apartment after she successfully manipulated him away from Lauren's surprise party for him for his birthday, there was this moment where Sheila turned to the camera and she said, "I love you so much, Scott. I love you so much." And I just believed it. Like, I felt her yearning. Like, "I love you so much." I just felt it and I believed it. And I, again, also see why they decided to make her a huge star of daytime. And she is. But those were the days when Sheila's biggest bad deed was stealing a phone message off of Scott's desk. I mean, this was early Sheila, 1990. That was the same year she was cast. So her villainy started out with stealing phone messages, and boy, did it skyrocket. But she loved Scott, and she wanted him, and Sheila did successfully manipulate Scott away from Lauren eventually. She had to drug him and sleep with him and get pregnant in order to do it, but she did it. But she miscarried her child. She miscarried her link, the thing that was linking her to Scott. And so she decided to switch out Lauren's baby and pretend that Lauren's baby was hers. Lauren and Sheila both happened to be pregnant by Scott at the same time. And Sheila lost her baby and said, "Okay, I'll just do this one. I'll just use this one." Kind of the same thing we were talking about with Adam last week that happened with Ashley. Oh my goodness, these two girls were really fighting over Scott, or they both really wanted Scott. He must have been some guy. I mean, I haven't had a whole lot of, I think he was dead before I started watching the show, so I haven't seen too much of him, but I certainly got the essence from the one episode that I watched that he was kind of a real life hero, that he was someone who was upstanding and had morals, and I think the ladies were attracted to that. I mean, he was very cute. He was very charming. I loved the way he recovered from the situation. I mean, he kind of bumbled into getting into some trouble with his wife, and instead of starting an argument over it, I really liked that he did this like brilliant damage control and just suggested that, "Hey, I missed this party. I'm so sorry. It was a weird accident, but let's just have our own private party." He just didn't miss a beat. He called up the maitre d', said, "Is everything still set up? Some food? Yep, we're gonna go. And I thought that probably said a lot about who he was and why he was so likable. Why did they kill him? Why did Y&R kill him? Sometimes the good die young in soaps. I also kind of am wondering why Lauren felt so insecure about the fact that Scott was with a nurse that night, some nameless nurse. I mean, at the point of that episode, I don't think Lauren even knew the name of the nurse. Did she even know Sheila's name? Did she know who she was? Had they ever actually met? I don't know. But I just am wondering, it just seemed like Lauren seemed very insecure in that relationship. And I wonder why. Wasn't Scott true to Lauren? I assume that he was. Wasn't he true to her before the whole Sheila thing even happened? I mean, wasn't it, in fact, Lauren who was still kind of holding a torch for her ex, Paul Williams? In 1996, Nicky was married to a man named Dr. Joshua Landers. Don't remember him? Well, that's because he wasn't particularly memorable. But he did have a crazy ex-wife who he thought was dead, but who was lurking around the ranch in a disguise. The ex-wife's name was Veronica, and Veronica had gotten pretty darn tired of watching Nicky and Joshua be happily married together. So Veronica shot and killed Joshua and then shot Nicky. Sent Nicky into the hospital. Then Veronica decided to throw off her disguise and start up a relationship with who was it? Oh, that's right, Miguel. That's who. Miguel even proposed to Veronica, but of course, Miguel's poor heart was broken when Veronica later tried to kill Nicky again, so Victor had to impale her with a pitchfork. You know. It does make me wonder, why don't soaps impale anyone with a pitchfork anymore? I think there's just simply not enough impaling going on soaps these days. Well, the reason I'm telling you this is because when Veronica shot Nicky, it sent her to the hospital on death's door for real this time. And Victor decided that he was going to marry her on her deathbed, which is what you do. You ask yourself, can I marry this problem away? Okay. Will marrying solve this problem? Okay, well, let's do it. Oh, but the only little hitch in the plan was Diane Jenkins. Victor just so happened to already be married at the time when he came up with this plan. So he asked Diane to give him a temporary divorce so that he could grant Nicky's dying wish and reunite the Newman family one last time. Well, spoiler alert, Victor never went back to Diane. Nicky made a miraculous recovery, and Victor decided that he wanted to stay married to Nicky. And I think probably it was the hospital makeover that solidified it. Can you even believe that that hospital room just so happened to have a hand mirror right on the hospital table? Did hand mirrors come with hospital rooms in the 90s? Like, you get the little pitcher of water and the little paper cup and also a hand mirror? Those scenes made me cry. That was the romance I was looking for Nicky and Victor Lifetime of Love theme week. Oh, the makeup. I mean, Victor was so outside of his comfort zone, and you could tell it. And so she asked him to help her put her makeup on since she was too weak to do it. And I thought that was just such a small touch of human kindness that actually reminded me of the moment when Nikki was putting on Victoria's lip gloss when Victoria was in the hospital a few months ago after Ripley Turner shot her. Yeah, Victor did not know how to do it, but he tried his best. He had to have a nurse run down to the hospital gift shop to pick out all of the makeup they were going to use. And I tell you, I would love to have seen the look on his face when that nurse came back with a bag full of Jabot cosmetics. I saw it. I saw the Jabot logo on all that makeup. That little container of powder base that he was using, it had the Jabot J right on it. It's kind of ridiculous. Like, doesn't that nurse know who Victor Newman is? Couldn't she at least have bought Brash and Sassy? You know I love Michael Baldwin today. But I did not love him in 1998. He looked so slick and so smarmy. Not slick and sophisticated like he looks today. And he was smooching up on Sandra Nelson as Phyllis. I remember this version of Phyllis very well, but she was my least favorite Phyllis, for sure. I think she totally had the intensity part right of the Phyllis character, but it was all intensity and none of the charm that the other two Phyllises have had. I mean, I felt that the others were charming on some level, and she just didn't have it. Phyllis was trying to convince Christine to help Michael get his law license back, and I do remember that being a very long process. Michael had a long way to go to regain Christine's trust, after he tried to dig a tunnel into her apartment and attack her and probably rape her, for crying out loud. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be real quick to forgive and forget either. Well, but I guess by 2002, at Nicky and Victor's wedding on Friday, they were certainly on friendly terms. I mean, Christine had brought Michael to the Newman wedding as her guest, although I wonder how much of that was about making Paul a little jealous. I don't know. Paul had showed up with the incomparable, I'd say, Isabella. She's sort of legendary, short-lived but legendary, and Paul was there with Isabella on his arm, and Isabella was looking very gorgeous in her little tangerine number. She was a beautiful woman, and as I recall, Michael and Isabella were working in tandem to keep Paul and Chris apart. I'm pretty sure that Michael brought Isabella into Genoa City with the express purpose of breaking up that happy little couple. Michael was such a sleaze. I think his, talk about a redemption, because his redemption story was nothing short of incredible, because I love him today, and I was like holding my nose watching him in 98, and the other scene I think was 87. I honestly don't think that I really started to feel connected to Michael until he met and fell in love with Lauren. I mean, I think Michael's relationship with Lauren is what wrung some of the grease out of him. I was a little surprised that Catherine wasn't involved in Nicky and Victor's re-wedding. I think that if that were happening today, I feel like Catherine probably would have been in the bridal suite with Nicky and Victoria and Sharon and Cassie. Oh, yeah, I wonder if Y&R played into Catherine and Nicky's relationship more so in the later years. I always remember them being close, but maybe they weren't in 98? I don't remember. Maybe you can fill in that blank for me. I do remember Keith Dennison, surprisingly. I remember the whole Dennison family. There was Crazy Trisha and her boring sister Megan, who was really only there to give Crazy Trisha someone to talk to. On the day of Victoria's wedding to Ryan, Trisha locked Victoria in a closet, put on an identical wedding dress to hers, walked all the way down the aisle, and shot and killed Ryan. Ugh, Trisha was just a real one of the crazy soap opera characters. There's so many of them. She also beat herself up and accused Victor of raping her. Ew. But yeah, that was Keith Dennison's daughter. Keith Dennison was the man who was asking Jill to marry him in that 1998 episode. I mean, that was never going to happen. You could tell it just wasn't written in the stars. And besides, Jill had many, much bigger, better things to move on to. You know, when Catherine made that offer to let Jill stay at the mansion with her. What was she thinking, by the way? Why did Catherine even offer that? But that offer ended up starting the whole Catherine-Jill feud over the house, which I really enjoyed. I really remember that period fondly. I liked the fight over the house. One day, Jill was staying with Catherine. She was snooping around the mansion. She was up in the attic, and she discovered some previously undiscovered letter that Phillip II had written that left Jill as owner of the Chancellor Mansion. And Catherine and Jill had this epic fight in the attic over it, and it was a whole legal battle. It took a long time. I wish we would see that episode, Catherine and Jill fighting in the attic. Maybe we will, because next week is Rivals Week. And if you can't lick them, you join them. Pretty obvious that Who Said It quote was a drunken line. If you can't lick them, you join them. And I thought to myself when I picked this quote, there is no way that everybody's not going to get this. I am picking a Catherine Chancellor quote during the Catherine Chancellor Tribute Week. Everybody is going to know that Catherine said this at her intervention, but no! A lot of people thought it was Billy because he was also drunk at the intervention. And a lot of people also thought it was Marge, but no, the answer is Catherine. Marge wasn't even in that episode. So if you guessed Catherine last week, then you got it right. It was just Joanne, Diane K, Lisa, Victoria, Jamie, and did Henry get it right? Did he get it right? Yes, he did. All of you guys guessed last week's quote that it was Catherine. If you can't lick them, join them. Oh. Well, I enjoyed last week's Catherine Chancellor theme so much. Here's another quote for you. Don't deny it. You know Catherine is right. Who said it? Don't deny it. You know Catherine is right. If you think you know, you can go to yrchat.com to leave your guess. And if you do get it right, then I will give you your shout out on next week's Y&R Chat. Following up our Catherine Chancellor Tribute Week, I got to give you our poll results from last week's Catherine Chancellor Fashion Watch. I gave you guys 4 options to vote for from Catherine's wardrobe from all of last week's episodes. And I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but Catherine's Rainbow Sorbet Intervention Keftan pulled to the top of the list for the favorite Catherine Chancellor fashion moment of the week. Let's see, number 2 was a little bit of a dark horse. Her wedding night blue boudoir robe. That was a beautiful robe. I thought, well, people are going to think it's odd that I picked that because it was only for the wedding night scene with her and Murphy. But it was such a beautiful blue robe, and she just wore it so well, and it looked so elegant. And, of course, she had on a diamond necklace with it, so that was a good one. The 3rd place winner was her lace wedding jacket, which was very beautiful. But I'm really surprised that more people didn't pick the golden brown cake fight blazer, which would have been, I voted for the caftan. I couldn't, I mean, that thing was just so outstanding that I had to vote for it. But my second choice would have been the brown blazer. She was blingy in that thing. Well, hey, here's a comment from Ambreen saying, I voted for the lace wedding jacket. It's different, but a mature take on a wedding gown. I do wish that Y&R wouldn't make all the wedding dresses white, though, and maybe show some other cultures and religions in a Y&R wedding/funeral. Maybe I just like the diversity. Oh, yeah, Ambreen. I never thought about that, though. You're right. I guess white is the traditional color for wedding dresses, and I don't think we've ever seen a non-white wedding dress. I mean, we even had Nikki's wedding dress on Friday, and that was also white. Yeah, that's a tradition that has changed a lot over time, and yet soaps tend to kind of still go with it. Well, let's see. Talking about those Catherine Chancellor Week episodes, TB84 says, so far I watched the Catherine drunk party episode, and I got touched. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know if I'm gonna watch all of the classic episodes. Depends on if I'll be able to. Let's be honest, it's not as exciting as a new current storyline for me so far, but it's still a nice and great escape from all of the madness going on in the world right now. Plus, you can always learn some Y&R history. Yeah, TB84. I mean, I think that's one of the things I've liked the most is, I guess I consider myself a pretty big fan of The Young and the Restless. And I guess I'm a fan. And for me, I'm filling in blanks on things and characters and periods that I don't think I would have been able to fill in without actually watching the episodes, because you can go back and you can read a wiki, or you can go back and you can read a book, but it's just not the same as having experienced it firsthand. So for me, that's been one of the most enjoyable parts. But it's also interesting that you don't find the classic episodes to be as exciting as the new episodes. I wonder if there are more people that feel that way. Because for me, it's just, I think, more exciting for me, honestly, watching the classic ones. These are getting me going and getting me up. And, like, every day, I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know where we're going to be. I mean, when I'm watching new episodes, I can have a reasonable expectation of what stories I'm going to see. But for every day with the classic episodes, I don't know even what year we're going to be in, let alone what stories we're going to be seeing. So for me, I find that exciting, but I can also see why the classics just wouldn't connect with a lot of viewers. I mean, sometimes it's hard to watch something that you just don't have any context for. So I get it, but I also wanted to mention that these classic episodes are up at CBS.com. At the time that I'm recording this, I went to CBS.com and I used the drop-down box for the season that Leslie told us about a couple of weeks ago, and I clicked through and I could see that all of the episodes, even Friday's episode, the Nicky and Victor 2002 wedding, it's there. You just have to go to CBS.com, go to the Young and the Restless episodes, use the drop-down box to select the season, which is a pain because, you know, I mean, it's hard to even remember. It's hard to connect the year that it was, let alone the season that it was. So they have made no improvements to the website, but at least they've uploaded the episodes there, so you can at least go see them if you want to. You know, that first 1981 episode was so good because it was almost unrecognizable to me. It's so far from what I picked up on in 93. I mean, not even a lot of the characters I knew of, like Vanessa Prentiss. I've heard that name many times. It was in my book. I know the name, but I don't know who she is or what she's really about or what she's actually like. So I think for me, that was the best episode of the week. It was giving me something I hadn't had before. And actually, Gary chimed in at the website and gave us some wonderful background on Vanessa Prentiss, which I'd love to present to you in case you guys were just really loving this as much as I was. Gary says, for newer viewers, Vanessa is the controlling mother of suave, singing Lance Prentiss, lover and husband of Lori Brooks. Replacement played by blonde Dennis Cole here. The real Lance is Eric Forrester, John McCook of Bold and the Beautiful. Okay, pause. I think I knew that from reading, but when you said that, Gary, I was like, okay, I'm instantly dropping John McCook. Bold and the Beautiful is Eric, down into that role. And I really think I would have connected with him more. Because I didn't get much from Dennis Cole, but he wasn't doing much in that episode. But he didn't he didn't draw me in the way that, for instance, Vanessa would or did, but maybe John McCook would have, because John McCook, he's so like classically attractive and classically leading man, and he has a kindness about him, I think, but also an intrigue about him. So I think if I'd have been watching John McCook in that role, it would have made a world of difference how I was connecting with Lance. But yeah, so thank you for letting me know that, because I don't think I would have gotten there without that. But let's continue on. Vanessa's backstory as she came onto the show was that she had earlier had her face destroyed in a fire, and for years the audience never saw that face. Fancy Vanessa was the bride of 7 veils, always wearing a chiffon scarf over her mouth to match her clothes. Oh, okay, I gotta pause again, because I'm pretty sure I've seen some photos of this too. Oh, can you imagine them doing a veiled character today? I don't know it's so mysterious. And that's probably why I was connecting in with Barbara and her face bandages. That was so 70s and 80s, the whole reveal and no face, and that is high drama right there. Her face was always covered until, moving on, in this episode, at the end of her run, Vanessa had finally had plastic surgery to repair the damage, so the veil was gone. The spoiler is too bad for Vanessa, finally beautiful again, only to learn that she is dying. Vanessa is a ruthless, evil character, jealous of her son's relationship with Lori. So because she's about to die anyway, she schemes to beat God to the punch by committing suicide in jumping out a penthouse window, and all the while having set up a frame beforehand so it would appear that Lori had pushed her. Ooh, it was a whole thing, and Lori beat the rap before ever ending up in court, I think. That's good. That's good. That's a good, solid storyline. Who was it? Oh, darn it. I don't remember who left this comment, but somebody else was saying at the website this week that, you know what, these storylines of the classics are super compelling, and you don't even hear any mention of boardrooms or corporate or businesses or anything. And that is so true. It's so funny how we've gone from these interpersonal type stories where, oh my gosh, she's jealous of her son's lover, and she framed her for her murder anyways, and she was dying. I mean, that's such an interpersonal relationship type of story. And now we do get a lot of different kind of plots. You're fighting over a house or a business, and that's what's kind of moving the plot. It is a very stark difference. It's like 2 different worlds of soaps. But okay, so thank you for, I mean, that's the kind of first-hand knowledge and summary that you could only get from a Y&R chatter. Like, that's the kind of thing that I just don't think you can experience through a wiki. So, I mean, that is so fascinating to me. Thank you. But I also have a confession to make. And I know I'm taking my own life into my hands by saying this, but I think I don't like Lori Brooks. I feel almost better having said it. There's just something about her that doesn't sit right with me. Every time I've seen her, which is no small number of times, she has this kind of snooty, snotty air about her, and I just don't like it. She's not warm or even relatable to me in any way. And even in the 2000s, when Y&R brought her back for some actual story, I just couldn't connect with her. I feel like I am supposed to connect with her. I feel like I'm supposed to like her because she's Y&R royalty, but I just don't. I'm sorry. Forgive me. I await your pitchforks. Starting with Superplex, who says, before there was Brenda Dixon, there was Jamie Lynn Bauer, who played Lori. I know you were loving those Lori scenes, Superplex. And Gary also filling in a blank here saying, Tra-la, Naked at Dawn is the byline for Lori's posted nudie pictorial to promote her upcoming first introductory novel, Naked at Dawn. Stuart Brooks, not amused. A pot boiler. So Stuart Brooks is a newspaper magnate, and his daughter Lori did a centerfold shoot. Oh, that is juicy. Maybe if I'd have seen that, I'd have liked her a little better. I think I would have rather seen her just being like, hey, this is who I am and I'm doing it and I don't care. And there's just something about anytime I've seen her in the classic episodes or even as she came back later, I don't know, she just seems snooty and snotty. I'm not getting any of the flavor of Lori that I feel like maybe I should have gotten. Oh, well, speaking of characters who had flavor that some of us love and some of us don't love, Leslie says, Terry Lester. Oh, yay! He's my all-time favorite soap actor, and I got to meet him and shake his hand once. I was surprised at my capability to almost instantly love Peter Bergman in the role equally as much. What a great character and 2 actors in the role. What a treat seeing the late, great Terry Lester on my screen today. Thank you, CBS. Oh, I didn't know that he had passed away. Gosh, so what was the circumstances under which you were meeting him and shaking his hand? Was it a fan event? Oh, but I like that you mentioned that Peter Bergman slid into the role. Why did Terry Lester leave? Can we get some clarification on that? Did he want to leave? Or did Y&R want to recast the role? Ooh, that's some information I don't have. So let me know if you know, Leslie or anyone. Let's see here. Ellen says, I always appreciated Lynn. Now that's, what's her last name? Bassett, I think. She was Paul's assistant. She was at the wedding of Nicky and Victor, coming up to Chris, saying, you look gorgeous. And Ellen says, talk about a regular person for the audience to relate to. Paul was close to her for so long, and it's odd that she wouldn't get a send-off or be mentioned or be seen at Crimson Lights once in a while. It would be fun to have her show up and stir up trouble. Lynn and Sheila? Partners in crime? Ooh, Alan, I kind of love that idea. Ooh, that would be so good if they brought back someone like Lynn as a bad girl, as a bad villain. Oh, that would so connect in with me. Because you're right. Lynn was always stable, nice, working gal, totally relatable. She was always nice. And it would be such a great twist to bring back someone we wouldn't recognize, but to make them a baddie. Ooh, I love that idea. Ellen also says, I forgot about Lauren's, is it a deviated septum that she had in the early years? Whatever it was corrected so that her sexy voice is not blocked the way it was back then. And Diana chimes in saying, yes, Lauren used to sound like she had a cold all of the time. Her nose always sounded like it was plugged, but she sounds normal now. I'm so glad that you guys mentioned this because I'm watching the episode where Lauren threw the birthday party for Scott, and I was thinking, oh, she must have a cold. I guess maybe I haven't seen that many live episodes of young Lauren. That is a period that is a little bit lost to me. I feel like I've never seen much 80s Y&R. I think that was an 87 episode, 89. Yeah, so I immediately thought that Lauren was sick or something. So she sounded like that all the time back then? Oh, it was so noticeable because it's so different from her today. You're right, she has that very smoky, sexy voice, and she really uses it. And wow. So yeah, maybe she had a corrective surgery or something. Well, Diana also says, I was saying last week how the sets were much bigger and better. That house that Brad and Ashley were living in that used to be Cassandra Rollins' home, Rollins, I don't know, was huge. When Brad walked into the house, I couldn't believe how large it is. We saw several rooms at once. The sets were so much more realistic as you really got the feeling of how rich the characters were by the size of their homes. The colonnade room was massive as well. Beautiful set. Ugh, Diana, I had the exact same thought. I love that set of Brad's house because I love Brad, and that's where I like looking at him. I like looking at him a lot of places, but I have many fond memories of looking at him there. So I love Brad's house set. But that was the first thing I noticed when Ashley came through the door was, dang, this set is huge. Because comparing it to the sets of today, whoa! Brad's home set had a foyer, had the stairs going up the stairs, which I remember there were upstairs bedrooms too. But then you come into this massive front room that had like a low and high area. And then you go, like, when Ashley was coming into the house and looking around, or no, it was Brad coming into the house and looking around, you could see the dining room doors were open but dark. I mean, it was massive. Yeah, because Ashley, and then Ashley was upstairs in one of the bedrooms. So yeah, I mean, that was like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 room set just for that one episode. It was a major house. It was a major set. I'm sure that's why they chose to recycle it after Cassandra left, or after she died and gave it to Brad. So, but yeah, that was a nice set. Totally a stark difference from the types of sets we see today. Tony says even the re-ranch used to be bigger. There was a foyer with an uppercase and a piano, and then down into the drawing room. It wasn't. Now it's just a doorway and a sofa. Yes. Tony, it is a doorway and a sofa. Oh my gosh, the most elegant home that we have is just that. I mean, even in thinking about the Abbott mansion, even that's a little bigger. They closed off the dining room forever ago. They've got Dina in John's office area now, but they don't show that. So you just get the entryway, the front room, and the staircase of the Abbott mansion. And that's probably the biggest set we've got. Maybe Catherine's? But even Catherine's is just the foyer in the living room. Wow. Well, it just speaks to how huge that house of Brad's was. But, I wonder, Tony, if maybe the reason why they burnt down the original ranch was because they felt it was too big and just not space efficient enough. Because the original ranch had that area where you walk in the door, and then there was also sort of a window seating area. Then you had your main room, you had your staircase, had your little bar. And then you'd go off into the dining room. And as you said, even the re-ranch after the burn down was quite large. So, I just wonder if they were realizing that they were limited on studio space. Maybe they decided they wanted to have more sets as opposed to fewer large ones. Because I guess with Brad's house, what was that? That was 2003? Well, we still would have had, like, the GCAC. We still would have had Crimson Lights. I mean, we wouldn't have had any other hotels. So what if we lost the large homes, what did we gain to make room for it? A park, maybe? I don't know. I'm just going on. Let's move on. T. Nicole says, one of my favorite parts of these classic episodes is seeing all the different opening intros. I needed to mention Wednesday's intro where Nikki's hair came flying in at the end and it took over. I loved it. Everyone else in the intro seems so small compared to Nikki's big hair flying into our screens. Yes, Tina Cole. I saw that one too. Like she was just bigger. Maybe she was just biggest star of the show and they decided to let that be the case. But oh my gosh, the opening credits have been such a treat to watch. I have been like really focused on those. In some ways those have been the best parts of it all. I think I could do a whole Y&R chat just about the intros. And I said this at the website, but I usually let the live airing episode just kind of play on the TV and I have it on in the background while I'm doing other things. But every day, no matter what I'm doing, I go to the TV to watch whatever that intro is for the day because that's just so compelling. It tells so much story right there. In fact, literally the intros used to tell stories. Like I can think of a couple examples. Like there was one where Phyllis was flying in and she was looking at Danny who came before. I think in the 87 episode, we had Olivia come up and then we had Drew come up and it looked like Drew was looking jealously at Olivia with, having her stethoscope around her neck. So it was like the intros told you the story before you even got into the story and they were just so compelling. Gary says that jazzy red satin opening on Friday's Y&R is their most Bold and the Beautiful yet. It's hard to look away from. I like to give these character mugshot intros some slack, but for the first time I noticed the extra flourish of flamboyancy each actor put into their pose. Yes, they were acting. Only Doug Davidson appeared human. Oh my gosh, that red satin intro. That was one where, okay, so I'm standing in the kitchen. I think I was doing some dishes. And normally I'm listening for the piano, dun, 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 and then I'll stop. And I'll go in and just do a little peek on what that's going to be like. But I'm doing dishes on Friday, and then all of a sudden I hear that saxophone, that sexy saxophone. And it was like doing this whole like jazzy number. And I said to myself, that cannot be it. Is that a commercial? No, it is exactly 11 o'clock. Hang on, let me go see. And I saw that. Dun, 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 dun. I mean, it was definitely sexier, I think. And describing it like Bold and the Beautiful is a good one, too. It was the saxophone. And it was just clear that everybody was given, like, sex. And I had to stop everything just to go see it. Sorry, my car horn was going off. My car alarm thing was going off. Sorry about that. But yeah, that was a really... maybe you heard it, maybe you didn't. I don't know. Sorry, though. But that was a real... That red satin background intro was probably the most different of all of them. Although the 1981 intro, where everybody was sketched, it looked like it was just drawings of all the actors and then the camera was panning around. That was a distinct one too, but still sort of within the theme, like the white background. The one in 2002 is the only one that was so red. That visually looked very unique, and I think we had that for a long time. I remember feeling a little like I got my tail feathers ruffled when they revised the song for the current credits that we have now. I mean, because each time they changed the visual look, but they've also very much changed the song. They've re-recorded the song, and I don't know. I think I wish they would have kept the original. It's not upbeat though. Like, the original Young and the Restless Nadia's theme is very slow, and it's very morose, and it's very sad, which matches the early darkness and depth of those early episodes, just the seriousness and the drama. And then as the show has lightened up over time, they've revised the theme song to match that, and it's become more up-tempo. And I remember feeling like, I don't like the newest intro that we had, because it's shorter. I feel like they cut a lot of stuff out, and it's very, very up-tempo. But boy, that red satin saxophone, that was a moment. Well, let's end on this. Victoria says, I'm disappointed not to have an intro and a quick background from the actors for these classic episodes this past week. Yeah, Victoria. I think on, what was it? It was like we had, for the past 2 weeks, all of the classic episodes had intros from one of our actors or actresses sitting in their homes, giving us a little background of the story, letting us know that they're doing good and they're okay. And then this week, we only had Monday. I think Eric Braden was just fresh off of a workout. He set the camera on the hood of his car, and he gave a little intro, and then at the end, he did it at the bar. It was very nice to see. I loved it. It has set the expectation. But then for the whole rest of the Nicky and Victor theme week, we didn't have any intros or outros, and I'm really pretty surprised that we didn't get one from Melody Thomas Scott on a Nicky and Victor theme week. Why? Why no Melody Thomas Scott? Is she okay? Has anyone heard from her? Please tell me that the coronavirus hasn't gotten to her. One little thing I did notice from Soaps in Depth, I gotta check this out, but apparently Cameron Grimes and Michelle Morgan are hosting a GC Buzz show, like a style format, where they're bringing on actors and actresses from the show to do like a GC Buzz little style The Talk interview kind of thing. And I thought that was so cute. I haven't had a chance to watch any of it. I've got my work cut out for me just researching all these past storylines. But if I have a down minute, or if you have a few spare moments, I think that would be really fun to watch. Has Melody Thomas Scott been on any of those? Oh my. Yeah, I think Y&R is trying to do some bonus content. So it is surprising that they decided to stop with the episode intros. Who knows? Maybe they'll be back next week for Rivals Week. Ooh, I already know. I guess I'm already thinking that probably my poll question for next week will be, what's the best rivalry that we've seen? So be thinking about that. Be thinking about how you're going to vote next week to the poll question that we might have or might not. Or you could go to yrchat.com during the week to let me know which rivals you're really connecting in with and which ones you think are the best. I know I'm going to pick Catherine and Jill. Oh, man. Will it be more? You know Catherine and Jill are going to be on there. You know Victor and Jack are going to be on there. Who else do you think is going to be on there? Lauren and Sheila? That would be a good one, but there's 2 more spots. Will they be 5 different rivals? They better be. I love Catherine and Jill, but I want one epic Catherine and Jill rivalry, and it better be the attic. You can definitely give me some Jack and Victor rivalry, but we do get a lot of that in flashbacks and stuff. I think Lauren and Sheila would be a good one. Who else? Who do you want to see? Today's the day to go to yrchat.com. Tell me who you want to see in Rivals Week. Ooh, this is my favorite theme of all of them so far. So I'm going to be really, really excited for Monday through Friday next week. This is keeping me going, y'all. Oh, I'm still mostly staying home, but I did enjoy seeing my parents last week. Oh, it's so wonderful. I see my parents twice a week normally. So it's been really hard to go 49 days without seeing them. And, you know, I miss Mom's cooking. Oh, I know you guys are missing your families too, but at least we're not missing our show. We're getting a little something to tide us over, whether you're loving it more or not as much. At least it's a little something to wet your whistle until we get back to regular production, which I'm also looking forward to. Okay, everybody. I hope that you all have a wonderful Mother's Day and that you come back and see me next week. I love you. Bye.